In '88, Mike Gundy helped Barry Sanders break 34 NCAA records behind the War Pigs O-line. Ladies and gentlemen, the War Pigs are back and bigger and stronger and faster and deeper and better. Hashtag America.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more as playoffs wind down and the summer heats up. FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. There's something in this for everyone every day, all summer long. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Thank you for making this your first listen. For your second listen, make sure you go check out the big homie Drake Toll at Locked On Big 12 to see what's happening in the landscape. We get to see what's happening in the landscape of Oklahoma State football, specifically offensive line. The greatest O-line in the history of the Cowboys is undoubtedly 1988. The 88 O-line was able to pave the way for Barry Sanders to, of course, break 34 NCAA records. Mike Gundy was obviously instrumental in that process as well. But whenever you think back to that squad, compared to this squad, I'm saying it now because it needs to be said, this year's squad should be able to rewrite some history behind what is inevitably an inference to try to stop the run for every opposing team this season. It's going to allow the offensive line to do a little bit more. Of course, we love the continuity, but if we look back at the 1988 offensive line, there's a couple of things that stand out. One of those naturally is going to be that continuity. Of course, that ball club had all 5 offensive linemen returning as seniors. So the seniority aspect, it might be a wash here. Another one of those things that you have to take into consideration, in my opinion, is going to be the fact that their biggest player on the entire roster for Oklahoma State at the line was tackle Byron Woodard at 6'2", 304. He was the only offensive lineman over 300 pounds. If you look at the entirety of that ball club, including Mike Wolf at 6'5", 276, Scott Webb, center, 6'3", 269, you go to Matt Kolb or Keith Roller or Ken Grant. No matter how you look up and down the board, even Jason Kidder was at 6'3", 274, 6'3", 247, 6'5", 270, 6'3", 280, 6'4", 260. That was the offensive line at Oklahoma State back then. Whenever you compare that to this year's Oklahoma State ball club, unfortunately, there's not much of a comparison. I mean, when you look at somebody like a Dalton Cooper, who we already know should be able to replicate what he's able to do last season on top of the massive amount of success that he brought over with him from Texas State, he's already, by and large, the biggest player on this team. Matter of fact, if you took the 1988 offensive line and you stacked them up against the 26 O-linemen on this current roster, the biggest player on the 1988 offensive line would come in at 22nd place out of 26 on this roster. So, of course, that tells you that we have climbed leaps and bounds through the years at Oklahoma State, but it's not just about the size. We do know that another similarity, other than the fact that we have an overabundance of seniority on this year's ball club, is what 1988 didn't have was the amount of starts. They did not have over 172 starts between them, nor did they have the over 200-plus starts if you factor in some of the two-deep as well. The two-deep back then compared to now is not even a legitimate conversation. But when you think of that year's ball club to this year's ball club, some of the things that we know we should get significantly better at, maybe not quantifiable when you look at 88 because they don't have, or I couldn't find them, right? I couldn't find the metrics for how many sacks were allowed and how many pancakes the offensive line had received, or that makes it a little bit more difficult. But one thing that I think we can look at is going to be yards per carry. That team was averaging 6.5 yards per carry as a ball club. Now, of course, Barry Sanders is a cheat code. And after we all saw what Barry Sanders did in the NFL, I think it's logical for some people to say, well, did Barry Sanders even need an O-line? Was the Oklahoma State 88 O-line really that good? Yes, they were. Because if you look outside of Barry Sanders, who was averaging 7.5 yards per carry, and the team 6.5 yards per carry, if you look at Gerald Hudson, the backup, one of the backup running backs, he himself was averaging 7.9 yards per carry. The fullback was averaging, 5.0 yards per carry. That was Garrett Limbrick, who a lot of people say is an honorary part of the War Pigs. This whole idea that Oklahoma State should be able to put up those type of numbers is why we should all be excited. Now, are we going to be able to put up, 240 yards a game rushing? Maybe not. Are we going to be able to surpass the 6.5 yards per carry as a team? I think so. Guys, the biggest hindrance to that yards per carry for the 8-ball club was actually some of the sacks that Mike Gundy had given up. And Mike Gundy was athletic enough that you would think that would be kind of a curious thing to see. But that O-line, it wasn't just Barry Sanders. You can look up and down the roster, and you can see that there is a significant amount of ability. Because whether it be Vernon Brown or Gerald Hudson, or as we just mentioned, Garrett Limbrick, anybody who had the ball in that backfield felt pretty secure. And they were able to give some time to Mike Gundy to throw it up to Hartley Dykes. This is why this season and this O-line should rewrite the history books. This team has the ability to creep up to some of the numbers that Oklahoma State fans have never thought was possible. Anytime somebody gets close to a Barry record, by the way, he still owns over 20 of the 34 original records from 1988, partially due to this offensive line. Barry Sanders was doing his thing at the pros with or without an O-line. But the numbers for this 88 ball club are going to be really hard to touch. But if there's anybody that can do it, it's this team with 7 returning O-linemen with that 172-plus starts. And then you have somebody like a Noah McKinney who's going to be squarely featured in the 2-deep at the guard position, as is Jason Queso-Brooks, who arguably might be the best guard of the bunch if you take it aside just the seniority aspect. So the difference between 88 and 2024 is we have the ability to rotate 2 deep. In 1988, if we had a couple fellas go down, it could completely change the impact of Barry Sanders, or it could at least change the impact of the success on the season. That's not the case this year. Just like we know that if Alan Bowman goes down, most of us feel pretty confident about Garrett Rangel. The same needs to be said with the offensive lineman. There's not a spot on that line where you have reservations. If somebody goes down, there's not an instance where you can't say, okay, well, we're still fine. All the way down to even be Taylor Materko, who can go anywhere. And Jacoby Sanders, is it going to be him or Austin Kweke that come in for Joe Mihalski? Don't know, but we feel pretty good about it because Austin Kweke was good enough to play as a true freshman. And Jacoby Sanders was good enough as a true freshman last year, already at 340 some odd pounds, to be pushing the 3 deep last season. This offensive line should be the best in Oklahoma State history. And Charlie Dickey. Charlie Dickey is the O-line guru who's finally getting to do what he loves to do, which is a little bit of smash mouth football. Speaking of smash mouth football, we might have to play less of that because the recruiting numbers are starting to come out and there are limitations, and it will change the game. Just like this summer for everybody, financials have probably changed the game for all of us. And what is important as you look at your potential financials is to get the biggest bang for your buck 24/7, right? Ibotta is for you. You're probably buying tons of stuff this summer, whether it be baseball bats, cleats, bags, back to school shopping, shoes, clothes, and food. It can all be stressful, but don't stress as much about the cost. Use Ibotta. Get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items from groceries beauty supplies, even toys. So you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. It's time that you join the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to get cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just make sure you go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, to get it done. Use Ibotta in Google Play or App Store and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get that $5 just for trying Ibotta. Get yourself squared away today with the best in the game on helping you get cash back. The other thing you got to pay attention to is your health, right? And Factor has the best way for you to pay attention to that. To add fuel to the warmer, sunnier days, you got to fuel up with Factor's no prep, no stress meals. Meet all of your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day that you kickstart your new healthy routine. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every single week, you'll get all of the new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you all can trust. Head on over to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use the code LockedOnCollege50 to get that 50% off of your first box plus $20 off of your next month. That code is LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Make sure you go there now. Get that 50% off of your first box plus 20% off of your next month's order while your subscription is active. Go there today. So we've seen some of the news start to matriculate out that part of this House versus NCAA stuff that's going on that will be directly tied to former players getting the adequate compensation. Roster limits are now bumped up, I guess you could say, but that is going to have an effect. So football is going to be 105. Now there's going to be sports like baseball and softball where instead of being capped at like 11.7 scholarships, they're going to have the ability to almost triple that. So that's going to be very big for softball and baseball. And I think even basketball changed a little bit. They went from 13 to 15. So not a massive change. And football technically did go up from 85 to 105. But where this is interesting and why this season is the biggest one of all time, no, it's not because of Adam Schobel's disastrous news. It is what it is. It does make Jaden Sanders from Kilgore a little bit of a bigger deal, but this is part of this conversation. The recruiting has changed so much that Oklahoma State seemingly just got a pretty decent foothold on where the landscape currently is at. And yes, there's going to be some shifts here and there, like the Adam Schobel situation, just like there's going to be some on National Signing Day that are beneficial for the Cowboys. This is the season of capitalization. And now that we know that the roster limits, scholarship-wise, go up to 105, how is that going to change the fact that Oklahoma State and several other universities currently have 120 some odd players on the roster in the facilities at practice at this very moment? A lot of teams have gotten somewhat used to having this number of guys available. When you're talking 120, 130-ish warm bodies that can help you get ready for the next week, that is layering your scout team to a ridiculous level. Another thing that it's doing is allowing the PWO program to financially make more sense at a place like Oklahoma State as opposed to somewhere like maybe in Arizona State. Now, I don't know Arizona State's financial compensation factors that they're working with, but I do know that Oklahoma State is making an emphasis on the PWO program. If you control the preferred walk-ons, then you're going to have the best time getting your main ball club, your starters, and your 2 deep ready for the next week. So this does mean that the limitations are going to be spread throughout the coaches. It also means this is going to have an effect in high school recruiting. High school recruiting has already been damaged by the transfer market, by NIL, because most coaches are looking for a guy. If you can get a guy that's already been through 3 years of development at, let's say, in Arkansas, right? And he has almost 1,000 yards already at an Arkansas. Him coming to an Oklahoma State means you should be able to plug and play that guy, as opposed to Oklahoma State, Iowa State, K-State methods for a long time, which has been get young guys that are undervalued, underappreciated. Maybe they're 2 stars, maybe they're undervalued 3 stars, build them up with body by glass and the Cowboy culture. And then after 2-3 years, they're ready to make an impact on the field. That's how teams like Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and Kansas State have been able to have years or times where they're popping up and compete for titles. I think that's one of the reasons Oklahoma State has been so consistent throughout the time of Mike Gundy, even when we've had ups and downs and trials and tribulations throughout the course of the season. This means that you can't take as many chances. This means that the developmental kid that you know is going to be really good in 2.5, 3 years, maybe you don't take him now. Now you have to get players that can provide the most amount physically possible day one, which means this transfer era is about to get even bigger. This is going to open some of the doors for a lot of your smaller FCS and Division II schools, though, but because of like the 125-ish players that are on Oklahoma State's roster and several of the rosters around the country right now, when this goes down to 105, that means you're going to have 15, 20-ish dudes that can no longer participate. Those guys have to go somewhere. So for Oklahoma State, if you look at somebody like a Parker Robertson would be starting at a Tulsa, North Texas State style of place. But he's a role player, a walk-on that had to earn his stripes and get on a scholarship at Oklahoma State. He's a guy that's going to be crucial still yet in the special teams and might still have some opportunities to crack in the 2 deep, 3 deep in game. But those guys that cut their teeth walking on and proving everybody wrong and building in the weight room to get, an even playing field with their scholarship buddies, because it's not easy, right? They have to do a lot of football in class like everybody else, but most of them have a full-time job or pretty close to full-time job outside of practice. So what happens to all of those guys? And more so than the numerical disadvantage that you now have, this is going to have an effect on your scout team, your preparation. So again, this means that when you get high school kids, you can't afford to miss as much. Same goes for transfers. Whenever you get a transfer in, of course, we would love everybody to be like Trent Howland to have multiple years of availability. But the mercenary role probably gets bigger. If every team has to cap their scholarships at 105, some schools might stick to the 85 and then pay portions to the remainder. That may be the case. Another fun fact about this is there is no clear distinction now on what's applicable per sport. So now some of the financials could be divvied up across sports, but some of the schools that can't afford it are going to now have to do a tier system. So they're going to have to pay the sports predicated upon the tiering level that their success equals. Oklahoma State is not in that predicament, at least not at the moment, which is why the capitalization on this season, to me, needs to be emphasized more than ever. We have to grasp a footprint as one of the domineering teams in the league for the future of recruiting. We have to solidify that tier 1 ranking so we continue to get tier 1 money from EA Sports. We also have to continue to build up this Cowboy culture, but this should make Oklahoma State even more competitive. Because we do have the money to stay uber competitive. We're on the threshold. Don't get me wrong. That's why I'm saying this capitalization is important. Because if we start to be not successful in football, then we lose a little bit of the leverage that we have at the moment. So that's, again, why I think this season is huge. You have a full complement of 120 plus dudes on the roster at the moment. Those 120 plus dudes can get you prepared for this epic run. But this needs to be the run that sets you up for the future. So, yes, I do think that this roster limitation thing is going to have a very negative effect on most of the landscape. But for the schools that can afford to do full scholarships all the way up to 105, those teams are going to continue to get better. The schools that cannot do that financially are going to have a Rob Glass, or they're not even going to be able to be competitive. Thankfully, we're in the upper echelon of the split, right? Even if this thing were to get down to 2 major conferences or 2 divisions, Oklahoma State would meet the criteria. But it's not by a lot. We don't have a lot of wiggle room here. That's why we have to keep winning. That's why this season it could be validation for recruits and high school coaches and fans alike across the country. Just like we should all have a fun time with basketball this season. There's going to be expectations, of course. But one of the things that can set up those expectations is having success in the pocketbook. FanDuel is who you need to use to have that success. We love sports, all of us, so much that we wish they would just keep going forever. But as the playoff seasons start to wind down a little bit and the summer months continue to get harder, the sports aren't doing everything they need them to. So FanDuel is hooking everybody up by allowing the sports to keep going whenever you want. All you got to do is open your app, dream up a bet, and make it happen. This summer, FanDuel is upping the ante a little bit by hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. So there's going to be something in this for everyone, every day, all summer long. Make sure that you head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. With FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and Cowboy football. Go hammer the over. Doesn't matter if it's Oklahoma State and it's this season. All right, we can feel pretty confident hammering the over. Steve Lutz, on the other hand, has got some work to do. But what he has been able to do is send out a plethora of offers. And as we've recently learned, those offers come with some good news. But over the weekend, Oklahoma State Cowboy coach Steve Lutz was able to kind of put on a clinic or be a part of a clinic. And that's going to be instrumental for the future success of Oklahoma State in a multitude of areas. But as we look at Steve Lutz sending out all of these offers, we have to know that Steve Lutz does have some success in the recruiting game previously before coming to Oklahoma State. So I don't think that we should have a whole lot of reservations. But we did send out 11 offers, and we did get good news already back from one of them. Ladies and gentlemen, this coach is the epitome of the old school hard work that we're looking to get back to. He gave out an offer to 6'3" combo guard Christian Jeffrey, who's ranked the 93 player in America. 6'4" combo guard out of Maryland, Omari Witherspoon. 2025 four-star prospect, number 51 player in the country, Kelvin Odai. Ryan Crowdy has also been given an offer. He's got to make his decision between Miami, Virginia Tech, Clemson, and several more. He's the 90th ranked player in America. At 6'5", he should be able to provide a lot of pivotal floor spacing for Oklahoma State. Michael Phillips II, a 6'6" prospect out of North Carolina. Of course, he's got offers from Michigan, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Georgetown, others. He's going to be difficult to track down, but it's possible. Another 2026 offer sent out Out of Connolly, Texas, Dickey Spear. He's the number 35 ranked 6'4" guard in America who already has offers from Alabama, LSU, SMU, Tennessee, Texas, and others. Christian Gibson, another 2026 6'4" guard out of Houston. He's the number 37 player in the class, followed by Austin Gooseby, another 2026 class guy, and he is by way of Melissa, Texas, home of our buddy Gunnar Wilson. The 6'4" prospect is highly ranked, the number 46 player in the class by ESPN. We've got to fend off Florida State, K-State, Texas, OU, and others. Styles Clemens, another 2026 prospect, a 6'1" point guard. Clemson is maybe the most elite in the 2026 class that isn't ranked yet. Davion Atkins, 2026 class, a 6'8" prospect out of Dallas, Texas, and ranked number 23 in his class that sits at number 51 or 58 in composite rankings. He has offers from Texas, Texas Tech, Houston, LSU, SMU, TCU, and others. And then Steven Spurlock, class of 2026, a high school teammate of Atkins at Faith Family Academy. Spurlock is a 6'5" guard. They have him listed as the number 65 player in the class and number 82 overall composite ranking. Since we sent all those offers out, we did get good news already from Christian Jeffrey. Christian Jeffrey has already included Oklahoma State in his top 8 group that consists of Oklahoma State, Penn State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Butler, Michigan, Maryland, and Mississippi State. The 6'3" guard played at Mount Zion Prep in Maryland recently. On 3 services has him listed as the number 68 player in the country, number 93 player in the country, according to 247. The Nike EYBL circuit has been his place of proving it. He's averaging 11.2 points a game, 5.2 rebounds, 4.6 assists in the EYBL action. He also was able to put up 22 points recently against Boo Williams on May 19th. He also went 11 for 15 from the field and added 4 more rebounds, 5 assists, and a trio of steals. I read all of that just now off of Pistols Firing. So make sure you go check those fellas out as they were able to kind of let us know about Christian putting Oklahoma State in the top 8. Now we just need to close the door and make sure he's a Cowboy, since we weren't able to do so with the Schobel brothers. Yeah, man, that hurts my heart. It really does. But it's all right. There's still time yet to change some minds, to become Cowboys. Until the next one, as always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. Go check out our buddy Drake at Locked On Big 12 to see what else is percolating around the league. All right, y'all. Later, taters.